Last team, the Toronto Raptors.
I thought we were doing the Chicago Bulls, Sam.
We're not doing the Chicago Bulls. We're not doing the Chicago Bulls, Bryce. The Toronto Raptors offseason preview here. Look, their long-term core to me is like pretty clear. It's Scotty Barnes, extension eligible this summer. We've got RJ Barrett, who has this 3-year, $83 million deal. He's been pretty good for them since he's been there. And Emmanuel Quickley, who's a restricted free agent this summer, who they're going to have to pay because they gave up OG Anunoby for him. They also have Jakob Poeltl on this 3-year long-term deal. They've got Bruce Brown with his $23 million team option. Gary Trent is an unrestricted free agent. Jordan Nwora has had a couple of fun games here and there. Grady Dick and Ochai Agbaji are kind of the guys I think they're hoping can kind of blend within the Barnes, Barrett, and Quickley core and work within that construct. The big question for the Raptors right now is, do you keep the draft pick? Because their pick is top 6 protected this year. They are currently at number 6 in the draft order. That makes things incredibly convoluted and difficult for them because there is a 29.8% chance that pick falls to 7 currently. There's a 20.5% chance that pick falls to 8, and then a 4% chance that it falls outside of the top 8. So basically, it's slightly better than a 50-50 chance that they don't keep the pick, even though currently they are in line to keep the pick. Would you want to keep the pick in this year's draft, Bryce? Because it has to go at some point.
It has to go at some point. It's top 6 protected every year. Is that right?
I think it goes down next year. I can look that up while we're talking.
It's top. No, it's top 6.
Is it?
It's top 6. So you're not. Yeah, I guess. Because so it's the difference. Like getting number 5 or 6 this year compared to 10 to 14 next year.
So that's the question, right? Are they good enough to where if the pick does not transfer this year by getting, full season from Scottie Barnes, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, and then Poeltl and all those guys, to where they're not right back in this situation next year in a better draft?
Yeah. Maybe I'd rather just go ahead and convey, and then it's a win-win, right? Like if you go and you're really good next year and Scotty takes the jump and Quickley's what they want him to be and all of that, you feel okay about picking 15. And if you stink, at least you have a top 5 pick in what should be a really good draft, I guess. I mean, win-win was a little strong, but I guess I wanted to convey, I guess.
I think that I go back and forth on it because part of this is like timeline specific as well. Because if you're Toronto and you're about to sign Scotty to this mega deal where you have 6 years of Scottie Barnes, right? That's the idea. You probably want the player that you take in your system earlier than later
to start building it.
But like you could also just take an older player like the next year or something. Ultimately, I go back and forth on this in a real way because like they're very clearly building a timeline of all these guys that are somewhere between 22 and 25 years old, right? Barnes, Barrett, Quickley, they're trying to like all peak like at the right time where they could eventually win a title, I think is the hope. A lot of that rests on Scottie Barnes being able to be the best player on a title team. I'm skeptical. I think Scotty is an all-star level player, but like, I don't know if he can be a number 1 on a title team at this point. That standard is just crazy, crazy high.
Yeah.
I think my take is that I would probably prefer it to convey this year, but I And the reason for that is that I would want all of my future picks for potential moves.
Yeah.
And like open up trade flexibility as opposed to having to work around like the future pick construction.
It does get very annoying when you have to play with that. Like, the Pistons have one that's tied up stupid crazy, and it just convolutes every single thing. Here's the other thing. You do have a pick that's going to land in the middle of the first round. I'm not saying the value at 16, 17, whatever is the same as the top 6. I'm not saying that. And then you also have pick 31. So you have 2 other picks that theoretically, guys, you're going to be able to select that you want on your roster. So now I'm at least spacing that out a little bit as well, Sam. I'm going to bring in 2 guys this year still. And then next year, instead of having nobody, because I believe Spotrac has cost me a couple times on this, but according to them, they wouldn't have either pick next year if it conveys next year, and their second round is going out. So then you go into 2025 with nothing. So I think the more I look at it, I'll take my mid first round pick and top of the second. And I don't know, maybe that could move you up somewhere. I don't know what the value of that would be. Like maybe I could do something if I wanted to get into the back into the lottery. And I would rather take those 2 and then know that I have my first round the next year. And like you said, the trade aspect, flexibility moving forward.
I think that's right. I've really gone back and forth on it to where like I've thought about it a lot. I think I would prefer it to convey. The next question here is, look, the first thing they have to do is like they have to get the Scottie Barnes extension done, right? Like Scotty Barnes's extension, the numbers are going to be like pretty, substantial, right? I believe that like if he was to make all NBA next year, it's like 280 or something like that. Like it's like a crazy, crazy number. I forget what it is, if it's like 25% of what the cap is going to be in a couple of years, because we're still working off of projections at this point. But you need to get that extension done. And given that he's made an all-star game, it's going to have like super max language. You hope that you don't get a player option in there, but the Raptors have given away player options throughout the course of the career. Bruce Brown or Emmanuel Quickley is the next one before we get to Bruce. What do you think an Emmanuel Quickley contract looks like?
Whatever he wants. Like, here's the thing. The Raptors, like they don't have a choice, right? Like you have to max Scotty because you traded Siakam. Like you said, you traded OG for IQ. So you have to kind of give him what he wants. What's he going to get? Between 25 and 30 a year?
That was my assumption. Yeah. So Tyler Hero and Jordan Poole both got 30, and Emmanuel Quickley is certainly better than Jordan Poole.
Caps going.
Tyler Hero, I'll hear out cases one way or another. I'd probably rather have Quickley, but like I'll hear it out one way or another. I think that the number is probably going to be right around like 30.
Yeah. I think I was on the low end probably. Yeah.
So is it 3 years? Is it 4 years? Those are kind of the questions I have on it. Is he going to be somebody that tries to get a player option on that 4th year? You max it out, you get the player option. Can you get like, maybe you do like 140 with a team option or something like that on the back end, where like maybe you do a declining scale contract of like, hey, we're going to pay you more of your money up front, but if we want to decline this team option at the end of the day, we want to be able to have that flexibility. And then that number would still be extendable at a real level because the number is so high as it is anyway.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like that's the structure I would hope for. I'd maybe like try and go a little bit higher on the number, have a descending scale, and then having like a team option if I could. He might just get like a very large number from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like if you're the Pistons, like you probably try and go for him. at
Yeah,
some point.
throw the
Right?
bag at him and see what happens. And if he goes back to Toronto, at least you made them overpay, quote unquote. Yeah, I mean, you're speaking right to my heart with the descending contract and team options. Like, I mean, I don't know how easy it is to get those on contracts, but every time I
Very
see
hard.
every time I see a descending contract, from a front office perspective, I love it. Like, I love those, especially when you know the cap is going the opposite direction. You just know they're going to look better and better and better every single year. So, yeah, I mean, like I say, we have seen restricted free agencies play out funny, right? And so that will be an interesting aspect of this for him. Do they get a deal done? Do you say, hey, go see what somebody will give you, and then just know that you're going to match it? That was the Andre Ayton thing that the Suns, but obviously that
you can't do that if you're the Raptors because you moved Anunoby for him. I think that I would bet you that there's a deal done like pretty quickly. Yeah. Like I realize what I just did there, but
no pun intended.
Yeah, I would imagine they get a deal done pretty early on in free agency, and the number is right around the pool hero level. The funnier one that we haven't talked about, I was talking about this with someone today. What do we think Jalen Suggs gets? Because Suggs has had a better year this year than like any of those guys in terms of like impacting winning when they ended up signing their deals. Like, does he get like 35?
Oh man, I wasn't going to go that high.
32, like something like that.
I got to adjust my mindset because I wanted to keep him in the same range. I got to look at the salary cap stuff a little more and the percentages. And I need to look at like the Nuggets. I need somebody to do the numbers of like the average percent of cap for number 1 options, number 2 options, number 3 options, first guy off the bench, stuff like that. Like if those numbers are out there, somebody tweet at me, send me a DM on Twitter, email me, whatever, because that's what I want to start working off of is what is the average percent of the cap for a number 1 option in the NBA? But I kind of know, we know those things. What is the average percent of the cap for a number 3 option in the NBA or a 5th starter or 8th guy? Those are the things I want to know because I think that's the perspective that would help us all navigate these, or somebody like me who's not quite as into the cap stuff as deep. So,
yeah. Next question for the Raptors is, what do they do with this Bruce Brown deal? They have a $23 million team option on it. They decided to keep him at the deadline, which was a choice. You do have real flexibility. You could decline the team option, or like I think they should probably just pick it up.
I say you probably exercise it, right? Like, what's
I think
the salary cap
like
situation?
Exercise and like trade him.
At
the end of the day. Yeah.
Because if they turn it down, are they like where are they at with cap space? I mean,
I don't believe they project to have cap space.
Yeah. So I just don't. I don't see why you don't just go ahead and exercise it. Somebody's taking on Bruce Brown as an expiring contract, even at that number, I feel like.
Yeah. I would think that somebody takes on that number for Bruce Brown pretty happily and gives up a pick. Like I would say somebody will give up like a player and a pick for Bruce Brown to match the salary and go from there.
Yeah.
Because Bruce Brown's a good player. He's a valuable basketball player at the end of the day.
Yep.
The question to me is, do you keep him? Like, do you think it's a good fit with Quickley and Barnes? Like, do you think that, RJ Barrett works with him? My answer to that is no. Given that, you have Barnes and Barrett, both of whom are going to be trying to drive into the lane, you'd really need to trust Bruce Brown to be like a super high level floor spacer that gets a ton of respect from like defenders as a shooter, I think.
Yeah, especially with Jakob on the floor. I mean, I guess if KO's out there who they, gave the extension to, maybe it makes a little more sense because now he's your only non-shooter that doesn't have the ball in his hands, right? Like Scotty, we know, but like the ball's going to be in his hands. So you space around him at 3 other positions, and now Bruce Brown just like can play that connector role. And I know he shot the ball better, like, he credit to him for improving throughout his career, but yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how much they're like really going for it, trying to win, like what they think they can actually be in terms of like a contender, like, which I don't think at all. Are you super like, hey, we got to go be the 6th seed next year? Then like, sure. But like you said, I think if you can get a real asset for him, you just do that. Unless like there's some salary matching in some bigger deal that I don't foresee them going after right now as well.
I think you just like space. I think you move him, you exercise and move for him. Like you trade him.
Yep.
That's kind of where I'm at on it. That's, I think, all I've got on the Raptors. There's not like, I think this is a year of like, even next year is probably going to be like a year of stasis for them. Maybe Scotty lifts them into the play-in picture. Like, I think that would be their hope. Like, we battle for the 6th seed, the 5 seed, something like that. You know, Scotty like lifts us in that way, but you know, we leapfrog the Nets, we leapfrog the Bulls certainly, and you know, the Hawks maybe, and we try to get into that like 6, 7, 8 range and hope that maybe one of the teams above there, like kind of, or in that group, kind of falls off.
Yeah.
And then we're like kind of battling at the end of the day. So it feels like a stasis year where they're trying to like figure out what the core is around Scotty and then build off of that.
I was going to call it a proof of concept. Maybe that's not the right term, but like, just, is this going to work? And I don't mean it has to work at the highest possible level to be what you want. Like, it's not the end game. Can Scotty be this guy? Is IQ going to be what I think we cautiously believe he could be in this role? Is RJ going to be this dude, you know, playing up in Canada and all of that stuff, you know, like does, you know, you brought up Grady and we kind of glossed over it, but Grady and Ochai, like what are they able to do, if anything, you know, those type of things. So it's just a little bit of, let's figure this out. What is it? Okay, now we have our answer. It got us into the play-in, and maybe we lose in the first round to the 1 seed. Great. Now we know what we need to build out around that. Yeah.
I think that's a good question, but like, I don't think there's any certainty they get there either.
I don't think so either. Yeah. I mean, I think we both have question marks about this being around Scotty, and that's no like knock on Scotty, but being the number one guy, I think, I know I have concerns. I shouldn't put words in your mouth. I have concerns about that being his ultimate role.
Yeah, like my thing is, you know, what if Brandon Miller takes a leap this summer? And then you have healthy LaMelo, Brandon takes a leap, then the Hornets are ahead of this team.
Yeah.
Right? So like they're in a precarious position right now, the Raptors.
And they're
like
about to get
some things
with some big time money on the books too.
Yes, they're in a precarious position with a lot of big long-term money. That's a great point.
Long-term money.
That's a very, very good point. Okay, Bryce. That's all we've got, man. We're done.